Well, good afternoon, everybody. This is Barry's Best Honey. I'm Mike, and I do bees. Welcome back to my channel here in my bee yard in South Louisiana, Southeast Louisiana. Anyway, I do hope every one of you guys had a very Merry Christmas, and I do want to wish every one of y'all a happy and blessed New Year. So, what am I doing today? Not a whole lot of anything with bees, but I'm doing stuff with bee boxes. I want to show you something that I found the other day when I was out here organizing. So I keep somebody out there shooting out back. I keep my supers where light can get through them, and all of these supers they had no brood in them. They were just strictly honey. So you can store those outside. I don't have any problems with moths. Leave them out there the whole time. These had brood in them, some of them, but notice even these, since they didn't have a ton of brood, the moths really didn't get in them. The moths usually won't mess with anything that doesn't have brood in it, and even though these had brood, they don't tend to. So what I do, because there was so little brood, not a lot of pollen and all that in there, so what I do is I keep all my ones that have no brood separate from the ones that had brood, and if the moths do get these, oh well, it happens. But I don't treat or put anything in those for prevention of moths, because I don't want anything in my honey supers at all. Brood chambers, whole different thing, and that's what I want to show you today, is what happened to some of my brood chambers. So what I want to talk about is I stored my frames, and this comes from, I had about, I don't know, 4 or 5 combines I did, and then when I was done, I pulled the top boxes with the comb, because some of this comb needs to be cycled out anyway. I had one abscond in the fall, so all this comb goes in my freezer, and as it goes in the freezer, I run out of space. As I have to put more in, I take what's been frozen at least 3 days, put it in a box, and I put paramoth basically in there. That's what we're going to call it, paramoth. I put moth crystals in and wafers. I can show you those, and I'm going to go over those, what I use. And I take them straight from the freezer into the box, put the paramoth in, I put it on top. I don't lay, I used to layer it, but there's no need to layer it. From what everything I've read, you just putting it on the bottom is really not what you want, because the vapor sinks down, and that's the insecticide. So I put it up top, and I seal that box. And then when I need to add one, I very quickly load a box, pull the lid, put it on there, put more on top. The paramoth will dissolve over time, so I usually put 2, maybe 3 treatments on, depending how early I start storing comb. And then now that we're getting to winter time, I'll go ahead and begin to bring it out. I'm going to line it up on these racks, and I'm going to air it out. And I want it to air for at least 2 months before I use it, preferably 3, and that's the plan. So I'm going to show you some frames, and I'm going to show you an experiment I did with something else. But first I want to explain paramoth versus regular mothballs. So there's a couple different types of moth crystal / moth repellents, and you need to be aware of them. Now the bee houses sell paramoth, and that's the one you want, it's paramoth. You can buy them at the bee houses, and then you know you're safe, and everything that I can tell. But you can get them at Walmart just as easy. So if you don't have a big order to put in, and you order from, say, Man Lake, you're going to pay like 17 bucks for a $5 box of moth crystals. So I just soon go to Walmart and get what I need, and they have what you need. So you just need to be looking at the active ingredient. That's the key to using the right one. The active ingredient that you're looking for is para-dichlorobenzene. Is that the right name? Let me look. I don't have my glasses, but yes. P-dichlorobenzene. You want that P in front of the one you're going to use. Remember, paramoth starts with a P. Para is the official name, is para-dichlorobenzene. P, para, that's the one you use. You do not want to use the one that starts with an E. The name of that one is naphthalene. You don't want to use naphthalene. So if you see a box of mothballs and you look at the active ingredient, it's usually going to say naphthalene. You don't want that one. What I have found is Eno's company makes moth ice crystals. So pretty much this is the only one I found that has that ingredient that you find at like Walmart, or maybe even, I guess you could probably find at Walgreens, CVS, whatever you may have there, Rite Aid. This Enos makes a moth cake too. Now this one's pretty neat because it hangs. And well, that's a high-powered rifle right there. This one hangs in a box. So I'll put a frame without a foundation in it, and I'll hang this off the frame, and it sinks all down to the bottom. All right, this is a box I just opened up. Of course, it's dissolved already. So it'll dissolve, but this lasts longer than the crystals. The crystals in a couple weeks will be gone, but the vapor is still in there. So you don't have to change it just because the crystals are gone. It's still got that smell. The key is you want to keep the moths out, because the moths are what get in there and lay the eggs. Okay, that's who you're keeping out, and that does it. Once you get those larvae in there and they start growing in those cocoons, unless you can kill them, it's too late. But I've had pretty good success by basically, like I said, freezing them, putting them immediately in there. Freezing them first though, because if you pull them out of the hive, there's no telling how many eggs were in there. So I freeze them and then I treat them. I don't like to have to treat them with that stuff. Anything with an enzyme, benzene, whatever, it doesn't even sound good. And that's why none of that will ever go on my supers. But I got to do something. I got to save them, and I haven't found any other way, unless I don't have more than will fit in my freezer. Then I will just keep them in the freezer, and that's always the best. Now I do know about BT, Bacillus, whatever it is. It's organic. It's an organic biological prevention, and it was a big thing. When I first started beekeeping, everybody was on and on about put this on your honey boxes, put this on. Well, I don't need to put it on honey boxes because wax moths don't get them. So maybe that's why they were having a great success with it. And some people claim to have a great success with it. But the way BT works is it's made for chewing insects. I use it on mustard greens and things like that because we're still warm down here when we plant them. And the problem is the caterpillars will get in there and eat on them. Well, when you put BT on the plant, it's a type of organic treatment. But when a caterpillar chews it and gets inside them, it basically explodes or does whatever to them. And it's a biological insecticide, I guess you'd say. It kills naturally. It won't hurt you to consume it, is what they say. And I used, I forget the trade name of it, but anyway, BT, the problem with BT in wax frames is the wax moth has to get in, lay the egg, so it doesn't prevent the wax moth from getting in there, and that's what you want to prevent from getting in there. And as the caterpillar or whatever goes in and starts to chew, then it dies. Well, if you do that, well, then you give that caterpillar a chance to get going. So it seems to me he'd have to start chewing first. Well, it's kind of too late at that point, in my opinion. I don't know. A lot of people swear by it and they spray their frames down. But while it's organic and I use it on my greens and things like that, I don't really want to put it in my honey supers and spray down my frames. And as I began to become a more experienced beekeeper a few years back, I realized I don't need to put it in anything in my honey supers because the wax moths don't touch them when there hasn't been brood in them. So when it comes to BT in the brood chambers, I've never really tried it. There's a fellow online, I forget his YouTube channel, he did try it. He had some success and some failure with it. He did a pretty extensive experiment though, and he was outright. He was transparent with it, and he showed it, and he explained what he thought may have happened to some and what was successful in others and why. So I don't know. I'd have to look it up. But anyway, I don't use any of that. I use moth crystals. Alright, so let me get this opened up, and then I want to explain what I've learned about moth crystals and how I've used them the last couple years and what has worked. And I'm going to show you an experiment I did with something that absolutely did not work. And I hope to save somebody some trouble if they want to try it. If they want to experiment, that's fine, but I hope to save somebody some trouble if they decide to go en masse and try this. It didn't work for me. Just telling you, it didn't work for me. I'm going to show it to you in just a second. I did an experiment, and it was with cedar chips. Now, there's a video out there, and I don't remember the guy's channel, and if I did, I wouldn't say it anyway, because I don't want anybody in any way, shape, or form to think I'm telling you he is wrong and he's not doing it right and da-da-da, because you know I don't do that. These are vlogs. You figure out what you want, but I'm going to tell you it did not work for me. Cedar chips did not work for me. Absolutely did not. And what I did was I had two stacks inside my barn, and one was with the with the moth crystals, and the other one was half moth crystals, and I put a lid and I put a few deeps of cedar chips, because last year I had a good experience with a box that I needed to preserve, and I don't know if maybe there just weren't that many brood frames in there or what happened, but it seemed like it worked. I thought it had worked, and I was like, well, I didn't get but a little bit of moth damage, so I said I'm gonna try it a little bit more. So I stacked about 4 boxes with cedar chips and brood frames, and I put 1 outside and like 3 inside. Now the 3 inside, I looked at them, and I'm going to show you one of the frames. I looked at them, and it looked like they had already gotten in there and laid some eggs. Now remember, these came straight out the freezer, into the box, sealed, and put the repellent in there. And sealed meaning I didn't seal them airtight, and I don't seal my moth crystal ones airtight, but I seal them enough where they're just not wide open so that they'll hold the vapor. Well, the cedar chips, I guess if you could put cedar chips in there and then seal them airtight, sure, you wouldn't have any moth damage, and it may give you a false positive because you wouldn't get any moths in there laying eggs. Then that would work. But how come, I don't get mine airtight? I guess if you could. Well, anyway, I opened it up and was restocking, putting more crystals in to the one side. So let me check on these cedar chip ones, see if it still smells like cedar. Open it up, I seen just a slight bit of webbing starting to form on the lid. I said, uh-oh. Open it up, and here's one of the frames I found. Now this was the frame I found. Okay, they had started. And started pretty good. And just started on this side. So I immediately added moth crystals to it, and it stopped. I saved some of the frames. And I'd say I saved about 70%. So that was good. I did save them. Had I not gotten in there, they would have eaten them all. So I said, okay, well, it doesn't work. Now here is a box that I put moth crystals in. Now, I do have mold. All right, now this frame here is going to be cycled out anyway. It's old. And it looks like it was from a cutout. You can see the comb that's all redone. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's a wired wax. So it's been redone by the bees a couple times. But that's just mold. That's old pollen that molded, but notice no wax moth trails whatsoever. None. Now that mold, once these air out, the bees can clean all that out. Same with this one, a little bit of pollen left. They're coming after it now. But no moth trails. Okay. Here's one that came out the next box down. I see one little moth trail. This was a cedar chip box. See the cedar chips on it? And a couple moth trails underneath. So I may have caught it in time, I don't know. But what I have found on Plasticell Foundation is where you see those moth trails in there. And let me see. I'm gonna see if I can point them out, but there's one right here. This had cedar, there's one right there. What I've found with Plasticell is, yes, the bees will repair stuff, but what'll happen is a lot of times they won't repair right there. And there'll be these divots and craters all in this, and it won't be a nice uniform comb. So while I may have stopped them and got the paramoth in there enough to shut the worms down, maybe even kill them, it just didn't cut it. And again, like I said earlier, sometimes if it's too late and they've already got infested too much with those larvae worms and moth worms running around there, it doesn't matter what you put in there, it's gone. So the goal is to keep the moths out and to kill them off. But this box, this one was, see, that's all old pollen, but no moth trails. So this box will now air out for 3 months. And that dry air should take care of a little bit of that mold. Let's see, that didn't have any brood in it. Had a little bit of brood, but no moth trails. Damage from me, but no moth trails. But it smells. You can smell the moth crystals. The old dead bee that came with it. But all that pollen, it molded rather than getting eaten up by moths. When I think about it having to air out because it's bad for the bees, it doesn't make me real keen on wanting to always use it. But again, I have no choice unless I have gigantic freezer space, and who really has that? Not many people. So I came out here and straightened out my stand, And I forgot I had put a 10 frame box with frames in it. I tried a box outside with the cedar chips to see what it would do. Remember, these came straight out of the freezer and they went right on into the box and had cedar chips in it. And the cedar chips were good and strong, fresh, brand new cedar chips. Now we sealed it all around. This is a shim that has a screen. I stuffed that so it wouldn't have anything in it. You know, of course, and you know, anybody, all you beekeepers out there know how easy is these moths. They find a way in. A little crack there, but other than that, it's sealed up pretty doggone good. Well, I couldn't get the lid off, and I was like, uh-oh. Here's what I found. I got the lid now. So, that's what cedar chips do for you. At least that's what they did for me. Now, this was a sacrificial box. It was an experiment. I'm not losing any sleep over it, but I hadn't even tried to get any frames out, but I can tell you now, these are completely ate up. And you can see the wax. Oh, look, they're still alive. And we've had a freeze. So what I'm going to do, these are all still alive. All these, there they are. Look at them. Them. And you can't see it because, let's see if I got the box loose. There's the cedar chips. Cedar chips mixed with wax moth feces. So there you go. My experiment, and again, these were sacrificial frames. They completely cleaned them. Now I will say that about plasticell. If they do get your plasticell, they will clean it all the way to the plastic. That's no doubt. They'll clean that wax right off of there. Not a bit of comb left on that thing. They'll clean that wax slam off of there. They will ruin. Look at the larvae. So what I'm gonna do with this, wait for a good freezing day, and I'm going to leave this thing open when we have a good freeze into the upper 20s and see if we can kill them all. But yeah, that was my trial. That was my try with cedar chips on one box. Now this was the cedar chip one that I caught halfway through. And I want to say I rescued some of it. And what I did was I put the paramoth in there afterward. Yeah, this was a cedar chip one that I did. And see, I started noticing some wax moth trails, and I immediately went back to paramoth. And I don't know that I stopped them, but I don't have near as much damage. Yeah, see, they had started getting in this one. And all I saw was just a hint of a webbing start. And they were after it. So it was a fail. It was a fail, guys. So these, I had another one on top. I had 3 here that were cedar chips that failed inside. These 3 down here are all paramoth. I haven't been in them yet. Last time I was in them was when I freshened up the paramoth. But like I said, we got to air them out. Ugh. I wish there was a way not to use any of it. Alright guys, so you got to see my experiment. You got to see my way of keeping my deeps that had brood frames salvaged to an extent. The sun went back out. But I wanted to show you that and show you what I do, how I do it, and what my rationale is for doing it. But anyway, yep, so we're done. You can see my experiment, where it went well, where it did not go well. I want to tell you a little bit about what I knew, what I've seen, and what I've learned, and what I've looked up, and with regards to the moth crystals, moth balls, etc., etc. And folks, if you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I surely would appreciate it. And don't forget to share this video with your friends, your family, anybody that just enjoys watching bees or watching stuff about bees, because we obviously did not get into the bees. Woo! Shooting them high-powered rifles. I do once again hope you guys had a wonderful Christmas, and I do wish you a happy new year. Y'all have a wonderful, wonderful evening, and may Lord God bless you and keep you. See y'all later.